When I was a kid, it was the age of the slasher. And nobody came close to being king of the slashers over Freddy Krueger. Today we are going to be talking about Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This is volume 2 of my Nightmare on Elm Street set, and the first one has 1 through 5. This has Freddy's Dead, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, Freddy vs. Jason, the remake, which I know everybody hates. I don't mind it. And the documentary Never Sleep Again. But today we're going to be talking about Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which was, it's a strange movie. I wouldn't necessarily count it as a Nightmare on Elm Street film. Really, I think you go from Freddy's Dead to straight into Freddy vs. Jason if you're marathoning these. You don't have Wes Craven's New Nightmare in the middle. That would be kind of weird. The reason for that is because Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which came out in 1994, a few years after Freddy's Dead, which might be the worst entry in the franchise, they had killed Freddy off. They made a big deal about it. But of course he wasn't dead. Of course he wasn't dead. Again, this is the same sort of genre that killed Jason off twice. Made a big deal. Oh, it's the final Friday. Now it's Jason Goes to Hell. You know, these guys come back. They're like superheroes. You can't kill them off. Wes Craven's New Nightmare, though, acknowledges that those movies exist. It takes place in the real world. And the main character in it is Heather Langenkamp, played by Heather Langenkamp, the actress who played Nancy in the first and third movie. She is being courted to be a part of the next Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And she has a husband who's a special effects artist and a young son. And her husband is killed while building the new Freddy glove. And she begins to have nightmares about Freddy. And she's convinced that they're real. She thinks that he's after her and after her son. And as she does investigating, she goes to Robert Englund, who's in the movie as Robert Englund, and Freddy. And Robert Englund's been having nightmares. She goes to Bob Shaye, head of New Line Cinema, played by Bob Shaye. This movie really plays it pretty straight with like bringing in people from the real world to be themselves. Finally, she ends up talking to Wes Craven himself. And Wes Craven tells her that there are times when a story can capture a type of evil, an ancient evil, a primal evil, and that entity can be trapped in the story. But when they killed Freddy off in Freddy's Dead, when the story ends, the evil is let loose, and that this evil likes the form of Freddy. He's gotten used to it. He enjoys being Freddy Krueger. So this isn't really Freddy Krueger in the way that the other movies were. This is this evil entity who just looks like Freddy Krueger. And Nancy defeated Freddy in the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So this entity feels he has to kill Heather Langenkamp, and that is how he will be set free. This was a fascinating movie. I saw this in the theater when I was 14. The slasher genre had run its course at that point. Jason at that point, I think he was up to 9 movies. You know, things were really getting ridiculous with the number of sequels and the rip-offs and things. And so this really kind of tickled my imagination because it really was different. It was philosophical. It was dealing with a mythology and just using Freddy Krueger as a springboard into that mythology. And really crossing that line, blurring it. What was real, what wasn't. You watch the movie and you think, you know, does Heather Langenkamp have a son? You know, like, obviously that's not the kid in the movie isn't her son, but did Wes Craven sit down and write this and go, let's see, Heather's got like a 6-year-old right now. Let's write a 6-year-old. And is that his name? You know, is she married to a special effects guy? I didn't know then. I've never really looked into it, but I find that interesting. I find it like, what is real, what is not? And then you throw Freddy into it. And that makes it spooky. It's not like Freddy in the haunted house, in the boiler room, stuff like that. This is Freddy in your home. Freddy up in your face. I mean, there is a moment in this movie when he pops out of a closet that he is up in your face. And at 14, I was fascinated by it. I'm still fascinated by it. Is this the best? No. In fact, I wouldn't even, again, count this in the Nightmare on Elm Street series. The only reason it's in the set is, actually, because when I bought the set, it was in the set. But this really feels like a precursor to Scream. Wes Craven was toying with things that just a few years later he would bring to fruition in Scream. And you know, what the rules of a horror movie are. And so, no, I wouldn't call this the best. Nightmare on Elm Street 1 is still the best. 3 is great. I really love 3. But this is, again, it's almost not fair to compare them. Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you are not a fan of Freddy Krueger, check it out anyway. If you are just a fan of a certain type of horror movie where it makes you think a little bit more, this is the movie for you.
Their worlds. Sort of gave myself the challenge of, okay,